Okay.
Dub 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 সাগরে আমার মন রে ডুব 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 সাগরে আমার মন তলাতল পাতাল খুঁজলে তলাতল পাতাল খুঁজলে পাবি রে প্রেম রন্ধন পাবি রে প্রেম রন্ধন ডুব 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 সাগরে আমার মন ওরে ডুব 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 সাগরে আমার মন খোঁজ 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 খুঁজলে পাবি হৃদয় মাঝে বৃন্দাবন খোঁজ 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 খুঁজলে পাবি হৃদয় মাঝে বৃন্দাবন দিব 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 কানের বাতি দিব 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 কানের বাতি জ্বলবে রে অনুপম জ্বলবে রে অনুপম ডুব 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 সাগরে আমার মন ওরে ডুব 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 সাগরে আমার মন পাতাল খুঁজলে তলাতল পাতাল খুঁজলে পাবি রে প্রেম রন্ধন পাবি রে প্রেম রন্ধন ডুব 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 সাগরে আমার মন ওরে ডুব 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 সাগরে আমার মন জ্ঞান 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 নামায় দিনে তারায় আমার শিকল জ্ঞান 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 নামায় দিনে তারায় আমার শিকল কুটির বলে শোন 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 কুটির বলে শোন 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 ভাবো গুরু শ্রীচরণ ভাবো গুরু শ্রীচরণ ডুব 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 সাগরে আমার মন ওরে ডুব 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 সাগরে আমার মন তলাতল পাতাল খুঁজলে তলাতল পাতাল খুঁজলে পাবি রে প্রেম রত্নধন পাবি রে প্রেম রত্নধন ডুব 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 সাগরে আমার মন ওরে ডুব 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 সাগরে আমার মন ওরে ডুব 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 সাগরে আমার মন
Good morning, everyone. Today I am going to speak on the topic, the exchange rate of spirituality. Now, do I mean to speak on economics applied to spirituality? And what about spirituality applied to economics? I have to admit that as an undergraduate art student, I had to take a course in economics. It was my worst subject and I nearly failed it. I just couldn't get the stock market into my head. But today, if I attach a handle of spirituality on it, then it becomes a subject of vital interest. What impact does religious belief have on the economy of a nation or of any group of people? How do the values of a set of beliefs influence our behavior as far as something is happening? Excuse me. This I can't get off. I'm having a problem here. What has happened here? I have trouble with the computer. Okay. I hope it doesn't happen again. Okay. Sorry. As far as economic consequences. So when we invest our lives in spirituality, we expect to get something for it. What do we get, and how do we get it? To apply economics to spirituality, we might ask, what is the practical utility of belief in God? This is America, after all. We want to be practical. Perhaps before Swami Vivekananda's teaching in America of Raja Yoga, before it influenced William James and at that time, religious experience was never considered worthy of being a scientific subject in the West. When James delivered his Gifford lectures in Edinburgh in 1901 to 1902, he wrote the varieties of religious experience, and he analyzed individual cases of religious experiences methodically and called his method pragmatism. Traditionally, economics dealt with only materialism, but recently, studies at Indiana University concluded that economics is a social science that studies human behavior. It analyzes and predicts individual behavior as well as the effects of institutions such as firms and governments and even religions. It is the study of choices. Spirituality affects our behavior, and behavior affects spirituality. So economics need not necessarily refer to cash value, but it does refer to how people use resources and institutions and make decisions. George Bernard Shaw said, "Economy is the art of making the most of life." What we learned in the past decade is that problems of human behavior are increasing worldwide. Climate change and diseases like COVID affect the whole world. Vivekananda said, "Nothing happens in this world without the rest of the world being affected." However, to achieve sustainability, they tell us, we need more of the very same policies that have made the global economy unsustainable. The doctor whose medicine produced deadly side effects in the patient now tells the patient that the answer is a larger dose of the same medicine. Humanity has arrived at a critical choice. India is now the fastest growing nation on the earth. But is growth the answer? More growth will likely lead to accelerated unsustainability. More growth worldwide would even lead to the extinction of human life. For instance, the more gadgets are affordable, the more carbon emissions they will produce. And with global warming, there will be more air conditioners and more refrigerators. Of course, more people can also use solar energy and wind energy and electric cars and buses. Climate change must lead to a call for frugality and austerity. There must be a global commitment to an alternative method of sustaining the planet. The alternative, a transformational change, can be more than an act of survival. It may also set the stage for the next step in life's evolutionary journey. Or it may lead to an end of human civilization. We are fortunate. Our great grandchildren will not be so fortunate. They will drink purified sewage water when the rivers of the world, now half dried or completely dried, and when coastal land masses will have submerged in the seas. A man may possess every worldly wealth and comfort, but be characterless, untruthful, undisciplined, For that reason, Swami Vivekananda had said, Indian thought, philosophical and spiritual, must once more go over and conquer the world. Today, through yoga, India is internationally promoting a culture of how to live simply and healthily. The economic balance of the nation depends on self-sufficiency of all sections of society. Gandhiji's economics was focused on the growth of the underprivileged, on equality, self-sufficiency, personal and spiritual development, on local resources. The khadi, homespun, handloom cotton products, Swadeshi, which provided employment opportunities, has evolved into the Make in India today. Militarism is inimical to religions, yet religion has been military and caused bloodshed in the past as it does today. Militarism and all its miseries can never be conquered by militarism. Armies, when they attempt to conquer armies, only multiply and make a brutal mess of humanity. How different is the ideal in India from the ideal of the West? The West said, do, show your power by doing. India said, show your power by suffering. The West has solved the problem of how much a man can have, and India has solved the problem of how little a man can have. Swami Vivekananda left the world in less than 40 years at an age when most men blossom. If he would have lived longer, he would surely have been put in prison by the British. He was at the height of his inspiration and popularity then, when he was at a friend's house near Lahore. His friend wrote, one afternoon he came slowly up to me with a thoughtful expression on his face, and he said, if it would help the country in any way, I'm prepared to go to prison. He considered finding redemption for his country through suffering. No one had heard of non-cooperation or civil disobedience at that time. He had nothing to do with politics. Vivekananda was standing in the shadow of events long in coming. Vivekananda had free vision of the world's problems, and he knew their solutions. Excuse me. Excuse me. Throat is the prime leaders of the national movement in India, Gandhiji, Pandit Nehru, Subhash Chandra Bose, gave India only a political identity. Vivekananda created a cultural identity. When the Indian government tried to abolish spiritual education by replacing it with secular education, instead of teaching religious harmony, the moral and ethical teachings of religion were left out. Now, where is that Indian nation today? The nation that sheltered the refugees of all religions and all nations of the earth? Both in India and abroad, Vivekananda emphasized the non-dualistic philosophy of Vedanta because dualism creates fanatics, exclusiveness, dangerous emotionalism. He considered Islam an essential part of the Indian nation. He taught for our motherland the two systems, Vedanta brain and Islam body, is the only hope. They now look upon one another with hatred and suspicion and desire to eliminate the other. Nivedita pointed out that if a religion were not universal and inclusive, it would be militant against those who do not find salvation by that path. But Vivekananda said, I see in my mind's eye the perfect future India, rising out of chaos and strife, glorious and invincible, with Vedanta brain and Islam body. He was not a reformer. He didn't believe in reform, which destroys tradition. He knew that change is to evolve in the hearts of the people to have any real and lasting effect, and not be imposed from outside. The middle classes in India today are a spent force, he said. They had not the stamina for a sustained endeavor. It was in women and the masses that he put his hope. He wanted to start a machinery for elevating the masses. This idea was echoed by one who followed in Vivekananda's footsteps, Sister Nivedita. Swami Vivekananda told her once that she was as much a prophet as he was. In a lecture she gave in America, Nivedita touched upon her favorite point, and a practical one, for the failing economies of the West today, when she said, we of the West are yet to be beholden to the people of the East for the most passionate impulse of simplicity and renunciation in common life that the world has ever seen. I think that the hope of this country and the hope of England and of all the luxurious and money-loving West lies not in driving poverty out, but in the love of poverty, in espousing it as the old saints and people espoused it. And this, if it is to come to us at all, will come through the genius of the people of the Orient. Nivedita predicted that in 100 to 300 years later, which means now, people will have seen the influence of Sanskrit, by which she meant Sanskrit culture or ancient Indian culture, by the rest of the world. She saw the day in the future, which is today, when the Christian would be found in China and Japan as here in the US, and the Hindu will be found here in the West as often as there. The Buddhist will be found, and the Muslim will be found the world over. Vivekananda saw a time when East and West would be obliterated. Sister Nivedita predicted, India has such a tremendous message for the West today and is bound to lay the West under such tremendous and unending obligation. Well, thoughts like merchandise require channels, roads for their expansion or proliferation. You, the Indian diaspora, are channels. The future of India and the future of America depends entirely on all its people working together with one will. Power is gained only through the concentrated will of a group or a multitude of people. What kind of government would give scope to this? only a democratic one. It is only in a democracy that the people can protest against injustice and inequality. Of course, there is power in dictatorship, but it is the power of the dictator or the state, not the masses or of people. Today, there is more need for individual responsibility than ever, and aside from fake news and propaganda politics, we are better informed than ever. I show a video. I think some of you may have seen this video. It's gaining in popularity, but it's very impressive in proving this point.
You there, second desk of blue jacket. What is your name?
My name is Alexis.
Alexis, please leave my lecture room. I don't want to see you at one of my lectures ever again.
I don't understand.
I am not going to ask a second time. Thank you. Why are there laws? What are laws for? Anyone?
Social order?
To protect a person's personal rights. So that you can rely on the government.
Justice? Thank you. Tell me, was I unfair to your classmate just now? Indeed I was. So, why didn't any of you protest? Why didn't any of you try and stop me? Why didn't you want to prevent this injustice? See, what you have just learned, you wouldn't have understood in 1,000 hours of lectures unless you lived it. You didn't say anything because you weren't affected yourself. And this attitude speaks against you and against life. You think it doesn't concern you, so it's none of your business. Well, I'm here to say, if you don't help bring about justice, then one day you too may experience injustice, and there will be nobody there to stand before you. Truth and justice lives through us all, and we must fight for it. Because in life and work, we often live next to each other, but not with each other. We console ourselves that the problems of others are nothing to do with us, none of our business. And we go home glad at night that we're spared, but it's about standing up for each other. Every day an injustice happens in business, sport, or on the tram. Relying on someone else to take care of it is not good enough. It is our duty to be there for others, to speak up for others when they cannot. I am here to teach you the power of your voice. I want you to learn critical thinking to empower you to stand up for what is right, even if it means going against what everyone else is doing. Let's begin.
I hope this video helps to impress upon you the responsibility of each one of us. The farmers' movement, for example, was a mass movement that cut across class, caste, region, and religion. It was a movement of unprecedented solidarity. That's why it was so successful in getting the laws repealed. It proves the efficacy of the democratic values of the traditional panchayat system. Swami Vivekananda proved that caste has nothing to do with religion. Yet sadly, many people in depressed classes convert their religion in search of the dignity of equality. We read today about the abuse of women in India and everywhere, but that is because they are no longer afraid to speak out and demand that the perpetrators be punished. It is seen in the corporate world. If a company's employees' management and employees grows beyond the cultural or religious sphere of its original group, it may limit its growth, and in place of a small, harmonious group, may begin to polarize. If all discrimination based on caste, color, and religion is allowed to continue, a nation cannot be strong. Just as the Americans are made up of a conglomerate of English, Irish, Russian, Norwegian, Italian, Chinese, German, and Indian, whose ancestors came to America, complexity of elements adds to the strength, not weakness, of a nation. Sister Nivedita contends that diversity is the very thing that contributes to a nation's unity. Swami Vivekananda created an organization because he wanted to make a machinery to spread Sri Ramakrishna's message worldwide. But he was reluctant to start an organization. He was tempted to do so since he saw how efficiently Americans were advancing in a very progressive society. But he was also aware of the drawbacks of organization. Once God and the devil met and went for a walk together to talk things over. Apparently, each had a list of topics to discuss written beforehand. God accidentally dropped his list, and sure enough, before he could pick it up, the devil snatched it up, making God a little nervous. And before he handed it over to God, the devil said, "Wait, I'll organize it for you." What is devilish about organization? Modern life has organized everything. Organized information about everything and everyone. Organizing and categorizing information. What does that do to the information? When we organize, we limit it, define it, reify it, place it. Once the British did this to the land of India and to the natural caste system of Indian society, dividing people, disuniting people, when there were not such limiting qualities or areas in the first place. It may have lent itself to be more fluid, elastic, changeful. If dissensions based on caste and creed are allowed to continue, the nation cannot be strong. We are at the end of the machine age, and entering the artificial intelligence age. Artificial intelligence will increasingly exploit areas of force or power. The great danger of AI is that it is unmoral. In that sense, it's frightening and risky. It has organized knowledge in science. It has organized the world of information in the daily press and internet. It has eliminated the need for dictionaries and encyclopedias, what to speak of libraries. The lives of saints and sages have given place to Google search and databases. Will the universal intellectual gamut keep up with or compete with external internationalism? The speed of locomotion is rapidly increasing. And this, though aiding communication, is necessitating connectivity. Necessitating connectivity devices is affecting tourism and religious tourism. Affluence gives the opportunity to revive and make accessible places of pilgrimage, which were formerly difficult to reach and involved journeys undergone with much hardship. As a rule, such pilgrimages were made mostly on foot and completely depending upon God, without carrying any food or money. With increased communication by telecommunication, more and more people are influenced by following what others are doing. True, places of pilgrimage are more accessible by transportation and are cleaned up and spruced up for tourism, but the inner shrines have become difficult to enter or restricted to contain the growing crowds of pilgrims. It has led to an extroverted form of spirituality. Now also, there are many images of beautiful gods and goddesses enshrined in museums behind glass cases, for which Pran Pratishtha has been performed, and which are ritually awakened deities that no longer receive offerings. Nowadays, religious people spend more time in religious tourism. People who are more spiritual do not generally depend upon or buy things to make them happy or satisfied. They need not depend upon consumer goods for their personal well-being or happiness. There is an increasing need for individual responsibility in a democratic society where the herd instinct tends to overwhelm an individual's freedom of choice. The racism and fanaticism that color religions today harm economic growth. Fear is a limiting, crippling factor. It limits the mind and our conception of things and of people. Organization also helps us only to visualize, conceptualize, and to divide and further categorize the unbroken, the continuousness of the world and whatever is on it, things and beings. Organization must be of a composite of people and things. What is the opposite of organization? Nishprapancha, expansion, conglomeration without modification or change. Beyond manifold or extension, undifferentiated. Therefore, the future of India, and indeed of the world, depends entirely upon all its people working together with one will. Power is gained only through the concentrated will of a seamless group of people. The future of India and of the world can only be saved by a balance of power worldwide. And though it may appear unbalanced, and that we are sitting on a potentially live volcano, it may not be so. Vivekananda predicted the rise of Russia and China. As far as India is concerned, its trade relations with China are better than ever. Though their ideologies differ. And this, excuse me. And this appearance and relationship goes for other nations as well. The world may not be in such a politically dangerous situation as the media presents, although the environmental danger looms large. Excuse me. Oh, that's worse. In the past decade, Indian people have come out of the doldrums and are looking forward with the belief that their former ancient glory will be theirs in greater measure in the future, as Swami Vivekananda prophesied. The India that produced such minds as Sushrutas, Aryabhatas, Bhaskaras, Charakas, C.V. Ramans, Meghnad, Melanobis, Jagdish Bose, not to mention the spiritual giants as Buddha, Shankaracharya, Gargis and Maitreys, and numerous rishis, from Vasistha to Vivekananda. What distinguished them from others? The extraordinary spiritual and mental power, pure, untarnished minds of people who practiced brahmacharya, self-control. This is not good. Okay. Oh, boy. Excuse me. So what distinguished them from others? The extraordinary spiritual and mental power, pure, untarnished minds of people who practiced brahmacharya, self-control, rising early, meditating with minds trained in yoga, discipline, study, and prayer. With such power of truthfulness as a Yudhishthira, or Sri Ramakrishna's father, Shuddhiram. Even the god Vishnu insisted he be born as this worthy man's son. The great defect of students today is that they cannot stand the strain of self-control and concentration for a long time because they have no practice and depend upon devices. They don't develop faith in themselves and their abilities. Previously, people had trained minds, and there were more people who were shrutidars, people who had minds that could retain impressions after hearing them only once. You know, Swami Vivekananda memorized a whole encyclopedia, including the pages on which the information was found. I have met only one person who could do that. You may know someone also, but I know that Swami Nikhilananda used to tell us that before he joined the order, he was a journalist working for Ananda Bazar Patrika in Calcutta. And his editor assigned him to record the speech of Annie Besant. And Annie Besant was a charismatic speaker. He was fascinated to hear her speech, and so fascinated that he didn't write down a single word of her speech. At the end of the speech, his editor came to him and started scolding him. What? You haven't written a word, I saw. What will we put in the newspaper tomorrow? The next day, the whole speech came verbatim. People could do more of that in those days. Now it's very rare. Once, Sri Shankaracharya gave an example to prove to a student that all knowledge comes from within. He told the story of a dog that was chewing on a bone. The bone was sharp. So the more the dog chewed, the more it pierced the dog's jaw, and blood was coming out. So the more blood that came, the more the dog chewed, the more ferociously it chewed at that bone, and the more blood flowed. And he thought, this is wonderful. This bone is so juicy. But he didn't know it's his own blood. Shankaracharya told the story to prove that knowledge comes from within. The blood that the dog was drinking was his own blood. Well, I don't know how much it proves that knowledge comes from within, but if you've ever had, I'm sure at some time, some experience, if you read a scriptural text, and at first you don't understand the meaning quite, you read it a second time, and the meaning starts to come through. You read it a third time, and yes, you know just what it means. It's like that. What do we gain by living a spiritual life? Let's examine the dividends of an individual's spiritual life. First, consider the demands. If you have chosen to live a spiritual life, you have to be committed to it, whether it yields results or not. Only steady practice over a long time yields results, and even then, we may not be aware of it. Holy Mother gives the example of a man falling asleep on a cot. If someone moves the cot in the night to another place, he will not know it until he wakes up. The conservation of energy is the first and most important lesson in spiritual life and in any life. It's the key to knowledge and yoga, but by applying concentration to an inert object, it can never yield self-knowledge. For that, something more is needed. Unless you love the object of meditation, you will not be able to sustain concentration, not for a long time. We try a little and complain that we didn't get anything. Unless we love something intensely, we cannot concentrate on it for long. When Sister Sudhira, disciple of Holy Mother, complained to her elder brother, who was an illustrious monk of the Ramakrishna order, he replied to her in a letter. He wrote, "You can love God in whatever attitude that appeals to you. One among them is unlimited patience. That can never be broken. This attitude is extremely necessary. It makes the heart broad. Unless one has broadness of heart or steadiness, can we love such a great thing as God? One has to not only pour out some water on the road of the heart, but try to make the water of the heart deep as the ocean. You have seen how a hose pipe works, haven't you? Water is sprinkled on everything. For a moment, the road is all wet, and then it is completely stopped. The water comes out only in a sprinkling. Let your heart not be like that, sobbing, "I didn't get anything," like the flowers getting a shower of love and another time getting not even a drop. You need a lot of patience and faith in yourself. You have to nourish love. How? Making your heart vast by faith and patience. Always and everywhere, make a strong resolution that in any case, I will love. Whether or not I receive it, I will give it. When going about my daily work, with every breath, I will love. Come what may, don't pay attention to whether anything happens as a result of all you hear about power or samadhi or self-knowledge. Love is the only thing that matters. Love is the only thing to get. Once, Swami Sarvagatananda gave a wonderful interpretation of the nature and goal of ultimate spirituality, or Sat Chit Ananda, which is usually translated as existence, knowledge, and bliss. He said, it is intimate, loving concern. If we invest stocks in that, we will get love and knowledge as dividends. So this is my examination of the idea of the exchange rate of spirituality. What do we get? Thank you. Now we'll have a song. Would you please, can you please announce the song? And we put the light. Can come up here. So please tell us your name and what you are going to sing.
My name
Shane, Ode, Kati, Nelaja, Chorai Kamal.
Could that be heard? I doubt. Good. Do post it.
My name is Rai, and today I'm going to be singing Ode Shati, Nelaja, Chorai Kamal. Ode Shati, Nelaja, Chorai Kamal. Ode Shati, Nelaja, Chorai Kamal. Toma naam mein baajai, toma naam mein baajai, jara pinu ode shadi mein lao, jara chodai tomari binu. Pashanni bandha khati Inch kola hale hati pashandhi bandha khati Inch kola hale hati keno ami kishe lobe inu Ode shati nilao, jara chorai tomari binu. Oraki tak taki, oraki tak taki. Bune pata guli, kaishara. Shene dhuli prane shama lila bhari khelin prane khela khari prane shama lila bhari khelin prane khela khari akhi Akhi mukhe inch khobur binu Ode shati mein lao Chara chorai tomari binu Tomar naame baajai Tomar naame baajai Chara binu Ode shati mein lao, jara chorai tomari binu.
Thank you.